Glad you guys made it. Most of you probably have jobs. You could be at home chillaxing, but you're here with us. So thank you for that. What is that?
He's recording.
Oh, nice. So our host tonight is Charlie.
I work in this office for a company called The Trade Desk. We're a big international tech company. We build infrastructure and plumbing and business intelligence for advertising. If you want to work in a big tech company, come talk to me. We're hiring for every single role. The bathrooms here are a little hard to find. You'll need to exit back the way you came, walk across these big stairs, and then you'll see signage for it. You don't go up or down the stairs, but they're just kind of out and around. Otherwise, I'll be milling about and connect with y'all later.
Thank you. Thanks. Our hosts today are Gusto, Technical Integrity, and Zoom developers. There's a developer from Gusto right here.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. My name's David. I work for Gusto. I also help out with the meetup and the organizing, so I'm very happy to see everyone. And yeah, Gusto is a company where we are like HR, payroll focused on small businesses. We brand ourselves as the people platform, which means we're eventually trying to just like do anything people related for small businesses. We are hiring some roles, so if you're interested, feel free to come and talk to me. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. So our technical recruiters are Technical Integrity. You can go to the website if you're looking for a developer role, or you can go to our hiring channel on Discord to find any roles there. And also Zoom. Thank you for making the pandemic easier. So if you like what we do here, if you like the events that we put out, if you like the pizza, if you like coming here hanging out with us, then you can support us on Open Collective. We will gladly take your money, no questions asked. So
We under-ordered this month. Pizza.
next one we'll order more pizza. And this is something obvious, but with these events, we're not just coming here for the talks, right? The talks are great, but we're coming here so that we can network, talk with people, have interesting conversations, find new opportunities, things like that. Like I have a personal experience with this where I had a friend. He's never been at a React Denver meetup. He's not a developer, right? He works with big data. He does data warehousing. And when I was given the talk a couple months back, I asked him to come. He came, and he was looking for, what they were trying to do was develop an app to show their real estate investors their properties, and so that their real estate investors could keep track of their properties. When he came here, after the talk, he was talking to some people, and literally there is a company here that does exactly what he wants. Like literally, like they take your data, they clean it up, and they build an app. And then from that, now they're working together. Those guys, I think they were here for the first time as well. So you never know how fruitful a conversation could be. So with a raise of your hands, who in here is hiring? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, everybody who's looking for a job, you know your targets. So if you'd like to come up one by one and you want to do that?
No, it's okay. We don't need to one by one.
All right. We'll move on then. But everybody who's looking for a job, you know your targets. Okay. Go talk to them.
We can hook up after the talk, hang out.
Okay. Go for it. We will skip that. So tonight's talk is testing JavaScript. Where is this thing? The Why, Not the How. The Why Not the How by Jeff the Buckfoot Bungrid.
All right. Now. Yay! Hello, I'm Jeff, co-organizer of this fine meetup. Always looking for speakers. If you're interested, please come talk to me. I could definitely use some. Otherwise, you get me a lot. Trust me, that's not good. So we're going to talk about testing, not how to test, the more of the why. There's lots of testing tools out there, and I could go probably a good couple hours just on testing tools and not even actually go into code. These are a few of my favorites. Testing JavaScript, which you can't see the text. Thank you, PNGs. Jest, Mocha, Cypress. There's Chai. There's so many tools out there. Not going to go into that. So why should we test? As I said, so damn it. No. Why should we test? So you have confidence in your code. You can make changes 6 months, 1 year down the line. If your test still passes, you're happy. If your test fails, now you know why. I do a form of testing called, I just lost my mind. I'm not a BDD tester or a TDD tester. I like to test what the user sees and actually does with an app. So you're not testing state. You're not testing network inputs, outputs. You're literally, if the user says, hello, John, like that's what you look for. Look for the text on the screen. This is your business logic. You're testing business logic. Your product team dictates what's important. That's what you're going to test. Don't test the code because code can change. How many times have you written a function name and then changed the function name that you tested? I've done that and then scratched my head for 6 minutes going, this was working. Log changes. Another big one, tracking regressions. I do this one a lot. So I get a Jira ticket, says, thing is broken if we hold our tongue in the left side of our cheek and spin around 3 times. I go, okay. I can confirm that, make sure it does actually reproduce, but I can write a test around that and go, this shouldn't happen, fix it. Now it won't happen again. Regression testing. Wrong reasons to test our code, and it's always because we told you to. You always have a senior or an architect on the team like, you should write tests. Go away. That's not the right way to write tests. Like, you want to write tests. You should write tests, not because we're telling you you should. The first one here, check. I don't like writing tests day of writing the component because I'm only checking the things that I literally just did. I know the screen is blue because I just made the color blue. That I have no confidence in that test today. I will come back in a week and go, okay, is it still doing how I think because the story told me that it should be blue? These are a couple quotes actually from a coworker of mine. Testing has a bad reputation, mostly because there's so many times when you get a red test, you go, I don't have time for this, skip. And now it's a great test until you delete it. They're difficult to maintain, and they end up getting too coupled with the code. And now you can't change a component without changing the test. Product members don't like tests because it takes away from your velocity, therefore not as many features. That's all they care about. No one wants to pay for tests, but they also don't want to pay you to go fix broken code. The reason for testing is it gives you and your team confidence in that the thing does what you asked it to do. pretty straightforward, I guess. You have to test what's important to the business. Your product team says we need a button that shimmers when you hover over it. Okay, how do I test that? Not easily. CSS animations kind of are annoying, but if your product team says we're going to localize and we're going to support 15 languages, I could probably spin up, some generic tests to check like a dozen buttons in an afternoon against all 15 languages and be done. And now I'm localized and I'm testing that it's localized. Someone wants to add a 16th language, go for it. My job is done. That brings what should break a test? Obviously, if it doesn't do what you expect it to do. Implementation testing is a difficult one. I don't test the network, so I don't make database calls. So it's really hard to go, oh, welcome, John, you're logged in. Well, I don't have a login. There's no user, so I have to simulate this. I don't like testing the network in end-to-end fashion, which you will hear a lot about. I don't like end-to-end testing because there's too many things that can break in that chain, and you start scratching your head going, who's wrong? You have a back-end team, a database engineer, they probably have really good testing, hopefully, to check your schemas, make sure everything is right there as well. So what should break a test? Easy assertions, red, screen should be blue and it's red. Like, that's a pretty straightforward one. Anything that doesn't match up. I don't want functions to break tests unless it's functionality that we're testing for. A hover, if I'm going to hover over text, I expect a pop-up. If that's what product wants, that's what product gets. If I test hover, no pop-up, it's broken. However, not everything has to be tested. I really am not a fan of unit testing personally. Unit testing ends up becoming contrived, and you test finite code to do, we'll call it a sum function, A plus B, return A plus B. I can write a good 100, 150 tests to test that function. That's useless. I don't care. That's a fantastic function, and I tested it, and I'm confident that it returns A plus B. That's not what I'm going to do all day. So how wide do you cast that net? It does boil down to your team. A lot of teams do like end-to-end testing, and they do want you to set up mock services and run through. Great. This is something you work out with your team. Don't take what I say and what I do is holistic because I'm wrong all the time. And one of my coworkers disagrees with integration testing, but whatever. Finding the right tools. Like I said at the beginning, there are tons of testing frameworks, tutorials. You can find a tutorial on how to write a jest test on Hacker News about every 2 days. So I'm pretty sure it's been covered to death how to write a test. That's why I'm not doing that here. There's lots of tools. Not everything works for everybody for every situation. Find what works best for you to start. Introduce more as you need it. One of my favorite tools is called Cypress. It's a way to run assertion tests in a browser, in Chrome mostly. Visual comparisons. You probably don't need that right out of the gate. start with Jest DOM, work up towards that. So for me, I use Jest, use Cypress, the testing library, which gives you all of the pretty queries for saying, hey, go to the screen and get something by a label. Go get an input by a label. Type in that input in the username input, John, type in the password, hit enter. So like, again, what the user is doing physically, you can simulate with these tools. It makes life a lot simpler in that regard. Sorry, been a long day. But it's been a very long day. It's only Tuesday. Anyway, I don't always test my code, but please don't test it in production. If you've ever heard the KCD joke of Bobby Tables, yes, that has happened. People do test out breaking functionality in production and go, whoops, back to the backups. Not a good idea. Your CEO will have a conniption. Now I'm done. I'm more than happy to talk testing. I had additional slides that I ripped out, but like there's like, what's the difference between assertion and expectation tests? Really not much. Formatting, but come talk to me. Talk to Michael just because I'm gonna point you out just because it's fun. Talk tests. I'm happy to give you tons of resources because I'm not that smart. I just had no one else to talk for the week. So yes, Michael.
You on one of the earlier slides, you said product teams don't evaluate or properly scope the long-term cost savings.
Correct.
Is there maybe an example or like context that you use when saying like, if next time when planning, I am able to speak to that cost saving?
You know, my, for instance, has been the gotcha instance so many times where we are at Sprint Retro going, we planned for 90 points of work this week. We got 20. Why? We had bugs. And like, it was, bugs are hard to track time estimate wise. So how do you estimate that when coming up with the next feature? Best guess. I have no answer for that, unfortunately. I double every number that I'll give you. If I think it's going to take me an hour, it's going to take me 2. Even if it's a copy change, like, you know what, that's going to take me 2 hours because I'm going to write a quick assertion to make sure that the copy shows up on the screen. How to get products to be cognizant and aware of that time is the difficult part from at least my perspective.
You mentioned it from the cost saving angle. What about, even if it's spending, it's like insurance, does that apply?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what's broke until it's broke. So it's hard to say I saved the company $10,000 last month because of my tests. That's a very hard to quantify amount.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got some major players like Microsoft that puts out an oopsie and bricks millions of computers, and they go, okay, well, let's go fix that. Great. How do you put a number to that? I think it has to more come from your accounting department, figure out lost revenue. You break production and you go down for a day, how much did you lose? Did you lose entire contracts because of that? Because someone was trialing and said, your stuff is broken, I'm not signing this $3 million contract. That has happened. It's not a good day. Even we get Slack messages, do not touch X environment. We are demoing it today. Do not touch it. Gotcha. But we have a hot pad. Do not touch it. I understand.
Thank you.
Any more back here?
Yeah, what's your opinion on like in interviews? Do you like asking questions about testing or?
So I do interviews a little differently from your classic technical interview that we've all been accustomed to fearing. The tech screen slash let's do a FUBAR biz bang example because that's practical. I do interviews where I just do a lot of conversation. So this is personal anecdote. I will ask you about testing and I'll ask you about the different tools that are available of testing and ask you your opinion on X, Y, Z. And I can kind of, based on your understanding, gauge that conversation. I do interviews in a more conversational manner. Because for instance, if I ask you about React context and you don't know React context, I'm going to save about 30 minutes worth of conversation, because if you don't know context, then you probably don't know the use context hook. You don't know that Redux uses context, stuff like that. As far as how I see it from other people, I've never actually seen a practical interview incorporate tests. Usually the code challenges are contrived and small, that they're not looking for you to write tests. They may have tests that are already pre-set up for you to pass, in which go read the test. They don't tell you what they're expecting. You start with the function. You take the inputs that they're giving you, you give it the output, and then write in between. Any more? Yes.
Is it enough to do just end-to-end testing?
Is it, sorry?
Is it enough to do end-to-end testing?
Is it enough to do end-to-end testing? No. End-to-end testing, again, in my opinion, is very brittle, because now you're testing network conditions that in ideal situations shouldn't break a test. But if for some reason you're testing on your laptop and your internet goes down, everything starts breaking, you're going to start looking in the wrong place first. I like integration tests. I test the UI, and I use mock service worker. So I mock all the API calls, responses, and requests. So I know the user John who logs in, I've already shaped the data that would be in the response. So everything gets populated, everything looks right. The UI does not know any difference. End-to-end testing, it can be valuable. I look at it more as like a smoke test, not an extensive suite that is targeted, like primary features, can user log in. That's how I usually see it, that tests.
So it sounds like the testing that you're focusing on here is like either spin up the site for real or in some kind of controlled environment, and then kind of pluck elements out of the site and interact with them in some way.
So it's tested in isolation, or component-based testing. You have a modal as your component that's got 4 inputs. I'm going to write a description block that's like, okay, you have a first name, a last name, an email address, and a phone number. I will write to make sure that you can fill those in, that clicking submit makes the request and the request has the right body. I will do negative tests to make sure, oh, like your name's required, stuff like that. I will also do in more classic to end, use Cypress to test entire page routes. So no longer just the modal itself, but clicking from screen to screen, expecting, now in this case, screenshots to visually compare with each other. Cypress in that way is really nice because you can catch visual regressions quickly. Whereas, like I was mentioning with CSS animations, really hard to test in a headless environment. You can track CSS class names, but you don't actually have a render engine, so you can't see play out shift.
Well, so where I was going with the question was, are there testing frameworks that deal with React specifically? Because once the page is rendered, it's rendered kind of just as a DOM.
Mhm.
And so are there, testing tools that play more directly with React specifically, saying like, not just this DOM element with maybe this identifier, but like this actual React class is what I'm picking out.
Yeah, what is the name of it? I want to say Enzyme, but I don't believe that's the name of it. There is another testing tool. I use React Testing Library. There's another one that allows you to shallow render a component by component name, and then you have access to the state and all of the life cycle hooks and static methods on that class. I don't like testing that direction. I don't like testing state. Your UI is a representation of that state, so I'm going to test the UI. State trees are meaningless to a user. I've seen Redux stores that were megabytes in size, and if you've ever messed with JSON, a megabyte of JSON is massive. And I've seen these deeply nested, really gnarly selectors. Great. User didn't see any of that. Do they care? If a tree falls in the forest, no one's around to hear it. Does your user pay for it? So that again, that's a personal trait from my end. I know a lot of folks who do unit testing in that regard, that will test the specifics of a component, such as props. I use TypeScript, so I don't write tests for props unless it's a visual prop, name, street address. If it's a prop that controls height of a component, probably not testing that. It depends. I at least attempt to answer. Anyone else? Questions, concerns, criticisms?
Is there any tools that you could use to test something like CSS or classes render?
So Jest is a headless browser, so it doesn't have a render cycle. So I can get the class names out of the DOM, but I can't see anything. That's where Cypress will come in. Cypress is running on Chrome, so you can visually see stuff. And you can take videos, like you can record a video. So if you wanted to make sure that the shimmer was actually working in your CI tool, you can have it export an MP4. Someone goes, yep, it's doing the thing, and yay us. I don't think, personally, CSS animations shouldn't be a functional thing. Like, it's to help the user. It's like, it's an animation. What is it doing? Yes.
There are like visual regression testing libraries as well that will like take a snap, like a snapshot that would like maybe be rendered in the browser and do a diff like pixel by pixel.
Like when like the users, like when actual users using the site, like that.
No, like if you make changes to CSS and like all of a sudden you're doing this like somewhere else.
You know what that would be called? Like
No, like there's like a couple of them.
Yeah.
None of them have satisfied my needs.
Yeah, yeah.
So like I don't remember what they are.
There was one, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember the name of the company. I was at Remix conference a couple months ago, and they had a booth there. I will have to find their name, and I can pull them out. But they do visual ML, and you train a data set with your application, and as pushes go through in your Git, it'll learn what something looks like. I put that in air quotes because I do computer vision, and it's not an easy task to train a computer what to expect when it's not expecting something.
Hey,
So for instance, you render red where it was expecting blue, it pops up, says, hey, like something's wrong here, and you say accept or reject. That kind of goes towards that direction of visual regressions. Cypress, you have screenshots that you can export. I don't have any tools that will then visually diff them. There are tools that do that.
Well, yeah, the problem with Cypress I've had is that you have to have someone go through
Exactly.
and like manually check the snapshot or the video, and it's kind of hard to get people to care about that.
Will is saying something Apple tools.
Apply Tools. Apply Tools is the visual AI based
I'm going to
tool.
stop presenting.
Yeah.
So now we can
Okay. Is it?
say
I still have you
I will.
spotlighted.
Yeah, I know there are definitely lots of tools out there that allow comparing, and then you can add in amount of noise to say, like, if the button is slightly bigger or smaller, that's okay. But if it's half width and now it's full width, that's a problem. I've not used those yet.
This is gonna be a bit of a silly question.
Okay.
Asked from like a bit of feigned ignorance, a bit of real ignorance. How do you know when it's worth testing programmatically as opposed to just clicking buttons and seeing if stuff breaks?
So that is a good one. That's the way my product team likes me to work, because they, when you're building something, like, you're testing it as you're building it. That's why I don't do test-driven development, write tests and then write the code. Like, that seems like a waste of time to me. But I think it's a value proposition. How important is that button? Is it a sign-up link that if users can't click it, they can't start giving you money? That would be bad. I probably want to put a test on that. Is it a feel-good button that they click on it and you get a little smiley face appear on the screen? No value, probably not tested. Again, you have to let your product team is going to derive the value of your tests. If it's important to them, it's important to you, it's important to test.
Or maybe just to push a little further, but how do you know when it's better to write a test than to literally physically take your mouse and click all over the screen?
I mean, how many browsers do you have?
I don't know.
How many internet connections do you have? How many computers do you have?
This is what I'm learning this.
So
and there's different variables to account for.
Lots of variables. I mean,
Might work on my laptop.
works on my machine is a very common idiom in software engineering. We try with environments to limit those things, but inevitably, I always hear from third-party APIs. Have you tried it on Chrome? Because God forbid there's any other browser than Chrome that anyone will ever use. Safari is apparently not a thing that anyone uses in software. So it's kind of a non-answer, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
it's a great answer.
it's yes. Can I click the button? Fantastic. I move on. Now you have a customer saying, I can't click the button, and you're going, it works for me. Must be you. sorry. And there walks away a contract because they physically can't use your system.
Makes me want to have a big warehouse of every possible computer.
Yes, Chrome is the only browser.
Possible.
Well, and
It's
it's,
a joke. I'm not being serious.
I mean, there's too many variables
Yeah.
when it comes to just using your application and testing. You are limited in what you can test with as well. You can test network conditions. You can test processor speeds, like a slow connection, and what does your render time look like. Those aren't valuable tests to me. Like page speed and all that is valuable information, but not as part of automated testing. Lighthouse scores are nice, but like they don't help in my CI process yet. They may. I doubt it.
Or his question, wouldn't it be important to write it for regression tests? Like every time you push some new code out, you want to test if things broke because of that code.
Yeah, exactly. I can't talk. Regression tests. You know, I alluded to earlier. If it breaks once, you fix it, and you wrote a test to verify that it fixed, then you never have to think about that again. And if I have to manually test that button every time I deploy, no, I'm not unmuting myself, Will. If I have to test that button every, what's your cadence on deploys? Are you deploying twice a day, once a week? And you have to remind yourself, oh, I got to go click that button to make sure it still works. How much time are you wasting yourself now?
You like build it into like your code pushes that it'll test.
Well, so there's two words here that we're using kind of interchangeably. Like the stuff that runs on every deploy, ideally is your unit tests, or like you build a regression test when there's a bug.
Mhm.
So there's something goes wrong with the application. You build a test that recreates that before you try to fix it, because you want to like assert that the bug is actually there, that you can reproduce it now in the state of the app. Then you fix it. It's called a red-green test. Then 2 months from now, someone does something that's supposed to be totally unrelated, and up pops your bug again.
Mhm.
That's a regression.
Coworkers will stomp on your code. You are not the only code owner of an entire application. Hopefully, I have met more than a few people. Like I am my own team, me, myself, and I are fantastic coworkers, and they are some burnt out people because they control everything. And when you say this thing isn't working, they're going, don't care. Coworker, I have coworkers that come through Stomp Code because they got a ticket to make a change, and it's now up to them to run the test and go, did my change affect the test? And then, is the test wrong? Correct the test. Am I wrong? Correct my code. Back to the pressing a button. It may work, but now I'm wasting 10 seconds every day, 15 times a day. Automation is the primary role that testing does help us with. Is I don't have to go through and click the button every day. Anyone else? Peanut gallery? I see there's lots of fun conversation about Zoom and buttons.
Well, he's clicking stuff.
I know.
And I said he's testing buttons.
He's testing buttons live. That's the kicker. All right, Martin got in. That's good. All right. Us ends me talking as a figurehead. Y'all have a great time. Commiserate. If you're hiring and you're looking for people, raise your hand, go stand in the corner. There are people that want to talk to you. We also have a Discord server that you've all should have been invited to by now. There is a hiring channel. If you're hiring, post in there. If you're looking for a job, post in there. I don't moderate it. I don't have that kind of time in my life.
So be nice.
If you're hiring, put the information in Discord. Yes. Thank you, Martin. You guys can't see chat apparently. So, all right. Thanks.